Representative Jim Christiani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Representative.
A lot of this morning was talking about the need for more and more and more spending, as if that relates to better achievement, which I think, Mr. Secretary, you and I would agree that more spending doesn't necessarily relate to better achievement. Representative Mao and Representative Baer, they kind of switched gears, though, and talked about building a better mousetrap, delivering better services. Representative Mao talked about countywide administrations and how merging administrations may reduce costs. My comment, or my question to you is, as you're talking to over 200 superintendents, what are school districts doing that we can take back to our districts and say that they are doing to reduce the cost of education? Focusing on not spending more than $27 billion on education in Pennsylvania, but how can we spend the 26 or 27 billion we're already spending on education? How can we spend it more efficiently? What are some school districts doing to reduce the cost of education, and what are some things that your the administration is doing to help reduce the overall cost of education?
There's initiatives underway that address both the back office functions of a school district and trying to move some of that money that they save in administrative functions. And there's also classroom issues that are engaged in. Let me give you one example of both. I was with a superintendent the other night who told me that they just negotiated a brand new transportation contract with their bus service. It's cheaper than the ones that they have now. Now they're going to be able to realize some of that savings in that transportation contract and drive it into the classroom in areas where they think that they need to be able to address instructional change. That's one of those important administrative functions that we're doing. We're seeing more collaboration take place across districts under the tutelage of the IU at some times on some of these pay issues, on some of the salary and some of the management issues, which is all great things that we should be promoting, driving the conversation a little bit more about how more effectively to use that $27 billion. On the classroom side, we're seeing a greater focus on tools that are out there and the technologies that's out there. SAS Portal is one example. The department's SAS Portal, one example of things that's freely available to school districts that they used to have to pay for to help drive instruction. I'll give you one very specific example in that regard. We run this portal. It's the standards alignment system, the SAS Portal. And there is a tool in that portal at which you can do curriculum mapping, which is basically say what's the 4th grade math, 5th grade math, 6th grade math, map it along specific standards over multiple years. The school districts used to go into the marketplace and pay $10,000 a year to license that tool. We provide that at the state level with funding that we use to build it out for free to school districts, and we have over 200 school districts that are now utilizing a tool that used to cost each of those school districts $10,000 a piece. The question is why we aren't more. We're getting the word out. So there's different ways that they can do things at local level to help stretch the dollar.
Well, and Mr. Secretary, clearly there are a lot of school districts that deserve a lot of credit, because in my area, despite tough economic times, they're actually expanding services. So they're freeing up some pot of money somehow. To give an example, in my district, we have Central Valley that is starting, in these tough economic times, they're starting their own cyber academy in order to compete. Instead of talking about the money that leaves, they're trying to go out and save the kid from going, the child or the student to go, instead of going to a cyber academy, they're trying to keep that kid in Central Valley. And I commend them for that. But clearly, they're doing something to reduce their overall cost to expand services. And I think we in the legislature and the administration should encourage that, because they're focusing on what the student or the customer wants, not necessarily just the dollars, and I think they should be commended for that.
That when school districts, and there's more and more of them that are starting their own online opportunities, and quietly a superintendent will say, yes, it's the right thing to do for the child, but it's also, we're doing it because we don't want to lose that money that goes when that child goes to the cyber situation, which I remind them that I guess competition in public education can sometimes be a good thing now, isn't it? The other thing that we want to take a look at, that I asked the legislature to also take a look at. We examined this last spring, but there still is a need to to look at the economic furlough situation. That is a mandate upon school districts that I think has outused its usefulness, and a clean economic furlough bill, not one that has seniority attachments to it as well. That's another tool that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. One further just follow-up about that. Representative Ellis brought up about the reform agenda and school choice agenda. Without getting into a policy discussion, can we look at the fiscal aspects of what school choice does to reduce the cost of education? If those kids that have went to a charter, cyber school, private school, if they were to come back to the public school tomorrow, what would that do for the cost of education in Pennsylvania? Would it rise significantly, or would it be about the same? Or if you could talk about that, please.
I think it would. I think you would see an impact upon the schools districts, that the receiving school districts, when those kids come back. I often point to a school district right across the river in New Jersey. It's a Newark school district when talking about this issue. Universally agreed as one of the lowest performing, or one of the top two as far as lowest performing school districts in the state. Yet they spend $24,000 a year per student in that school district. Now the question is, when you look at choice, if students were to be able to take a portion of that and of that funds and go to a school that better fits the needs of that individual students, the remaining money could stay with that school district and be redirected. That is separate and apart from whether or not when you're investing, when those taxpayers are investing $24,000 a year per student and still getting the academic returns, whether or not the system is at fault or whether the students are at fault. But that's a different conversation, Representative.
So thank you, Mr. Secretary. And Mr. Chairman, thank you.